Considering I've been speaking a lot about Disney songs lately, I decided to visit another part that is important to the stories that involve them. One that is the opposite from the nefarious villain songs that pertains to that of the hero, where you already know what I'm talking about here in terms of things called the I Want song. Songs that are usually featured in musical theater where our main characters sing about what they want from their current stage in life that sets up the entire plot of the movie going forward, where it was made obviously popular in the Renaissance itself by the works of Howard Ashman with The Little Mermaid moving forward, becoming a staple of the most beloved Disney heroes to date. Now of course, this doesn't mean that the I Want songs didn't exist before that very point, as there were a couple here and there where you can frame songs like Hellfire for the Villain as an I Want song too, but it's not really as developed to what it pertains to in the story, where that will obviously be excluded for the most part in this list in terms of the older Disney films that had it technically, except for a few as you will see, or even other characters that aren't exactly the main protagonists of that said stories. For example, I really wanted so hard to include Cinderella's song, but then again, she also applies that to her friends, encouraging them to believe in their heart's desire rather than just herself in that way. More in terms of if we can dream it, we can do it, rather than most of these songs that are focused on an individual's desire. And yeah, pertaining to the villains, I already did villain songs, so no matter how hard you try to spin that, it really doesn't count for including on this list. Where of course, finally, I will include the actual background music of their own songs in this list, like the last one I did for the villains, because I really believe that is an important part to show my feelings to each one, rather than stock background music that most times I actually use. But beside all that, I guess let's get started. Sadly, once again, this was going to be expected as dead last, as we've already talked about it way too much to even care. But it still really isn't a bad song at all, and a good one where I don't really hate any of the ones I included on this entire list and enjoy them to equal degrees of listening to, but just in terms of an I Want song that is usually involved in musical theater, this wish just really sucks as it is too vague to even understand outside of it. Because again, you don't know what the hell this is in making this wish in relative terms of the story itself. Because every song that is featured on this list after this at least has a purpose towards its character and the specifics of what they really want in the entire story, instead of a broad overarching premise that is hollow, since most characters outside of the two main ones have no real meaningful development. Like everything about the movie, it still sounds good on paper, and I did mention I have sung it alongside everyone else at Disney parks at that time for the fun of it all, but still just never given a reason to why I should connect to Asha's plight at all. If she at least explained more in terms of what people wish for as much as any other character showcase how their lives aren't as good in terms of both them and the people around them, then this could have maybe been a really powerful song with the messages of wishes that Disney is known for, becoming as popular as they want it to be. But alas, with what we got, it never went towards that route, as this was worked towards the very beginning instead of working out the story at all. And that's a problem with how the entire soundtrack sounds again, as I and everyone else have said it multiple times, really diving into its necessity to rhyme, which in turn makes it give such weird lyrics that most times just don't make any sense at all. Just don't put lines there for the sake of it sounding good unless you had a purpose towards it. A fault of the entire production itself not given any good writing, resulting in the mess from every part no matter how talented the artists and directors working on it were, including their own prior resumes and works. Where sadly, the only thing you can really say at this point is that we make this wish to have something more than this. Lyrically, of course. Now, this one was really hard for me to even define or describe in terms of the I Want songs, because it's very clear that Elsa's the main protagonist in the way in Frozen 2, and has her own two individual songs to go off, which are pretty great and better than Let It Go, of course, but still muddy in terms of what our hero is going through for their I Want moment. And that's why I put it right here for that reason with Into the Unknown as the bigger call to action moment in the film for the adventure taking place. I mean, it makes sense because it is Frozen 2, so they kind of do things more differently in such a bad way compared to the standard formula going into something like that, which can translate to this being an I don't want or I don't know what this thing wants from me, but also still curious, which turns this into wanting to find out what it specifically is, if you get what I mean, and still counts in that regard as an I want. Because it does express something very intriguing for a story we never really had, since Frozen 2 had no clear idea to begin with, questioning what she wants or where she needs to be in terms of what she has now. Where I really do enjoy Idina Menzel's singing, especially in the chorus of Into the Unknown, really emphasizing the feelings of going into that unknown itself, which also unfortunately isn't elaborated upon just like This Wish. But unlike This Wish, we already have such context for her character, and the song actually fits within the message of the unknown itself, discovering what should be, so it makes it a more clear song in that regard. But also not clear enough to be a strong I Want song either, so I guess it's why it makes sense to why I should put it here anyways. Unfortunately, Aladdin's I Want song is so short, only being the reprise of One Jump Ahead, that it only has 6 lines in total to really describe what he wants more than what the town calls him. Which is also sad to think about it, that also resulted from Howard Ashman's death, who worked on some of Aladdin's songs before being put on Beauty and the Beast, including Proud of Your Boy that was adapted into the Broadway version, being wanting to have his mother be proud of him. Which is a song I really relate to in many ways, wishing it was in the film, including his own mom, which would have straightened more of his character from the very beginning, where they also had another I Want song before for chosen to him, but just chose not to do that either, where instead they put something so simple as this to tack on to One Jump Ahead as well, which kind of does count in terms of the nature, explaining what and who Aladdin is to some degree to the very people of Agrabah, but still not enough to actually explain it. Which I guess I just put it here because there is more facts to who Aladdin is and what we already know about him in terms of his wishes, but still not enough to satisfy you like those cut songs would do for him. In fact, in regarding this, you could probably create your own I Want song pertaining to how you want more for Aladdin in his own I Want song. Now, this is where we get a little more complete to I Want songs that really describe what the character really wants from the very beginning with Just Around the Riverbend. It deals a lot with Pocahontas' love of nature, wanting to discover what is around the river or the mountain or whatever you could think of that adventure entails compared to just marrying Kocoum and following a tradition that her father wills. But again, it still isn't enough to actually describe what specifically is wanted. I mean, yes, I just said that this is where it gets a little more complete to what she really wants, but it still is little in that regard, as Stephen Schwartz didn't even think that there was much that she could sing about at this point in time before John Smith is introduced, and the fact that it is very hard to start Pocahontas' story musically, which is why we really didn't see this work for the movie itself, as such history cannot be adapted in this certain way, even if the songs are really good on their own like Colors of the Wind. But regarding that, this song flows really well, giving feelings of excitement and beauty of what should be out there, where you really can't step in the same river twice because of the fact that the water does keep flowing and changing, giving something new and different that gives us more freedom compared to the standard smooth course. Not a bad I Want song, but not a fully complete one either. For the first time in forever, we finally get an I Want song that knows what it really wants. This song truly gave birth to how Frozen was going to be a hit, with its characters contrasting between the excitement for Anna and compare that to concealment for Elsa. For sadly, now that I think about it, she does have 2 I Want songs on this list in terms of both lyrics and features, where it really sets apart the expectation of what is to come, since it is Elsa's coronation day, being old enough to take the throne finally, and Anna getting the chance to experience the kingdom open up to the public. It's mysterious in a good way that they can get the chance to express themselves for who they are and open up to the possibility that can change their lives forever for mostly good reasons. But it's not strong enough to actually be my top 10 because of the focus of some lines being a little too anachronistic for its time, that set modern Disney into the spur to relate to newer generations for some reason, rather than holding its own as a normal song, but still fits regardless to the character of Anna, comparing that to the coder Elsa, who we know has powers that she does not know how to fully control. And it's perfectly placed at the start of the present day events of the movie, and of course actually setting up context to what was learned previously in their youth and what will be done after. So kudos for this for doing something like that rather than the previous ones on this list. Out There is such a rich song in my opinion, within the desires of Quasimodo for something that is just so relatively simple. One that is done by our favorite darkest Disney villain, who actually performs part of the song in the first half to express why he can't be out there in the first place before going into why he wants to do so. It's something tragic because it's all about his facial appearances regarding to Frollo to why he can't be out there compared to when people actually hear and see him, showing a complete opposite in regards to the face of a monster and more of a kind, compassionate human being. And that's why I really like this song so much, and even more than some of the songs I rank a little bit higher on this list, but had to put it right here as I think some are still stronger within the context of the film itself and of course the broader overview feelings that most people hold on to, where it also has been pointed out that this song hasn't been played as often as others, which is another disappointing fact that should be appreciated more, but understandable to why others took off more than this one could. A charming song with such a simple tragic message in a film that has more complexity to it. Almost There is such a visually impressive I Want song that makes me want to create an I Want song regarding the return of 2D animation such as this, because this song is relatively fun in terms of how Tiana worked to the bone to get to this point to visualize what she and what her daddy spoke of long ago, not just trying to achieve it for herself, but for her own father's legacy, that he left to inspire her for, which is another great fact to put in because of how her own mother tries to tell him to slow down wanting grandkids too, as that must be appreciated in life rather than how this is becoming her whole desire to what she wants, working towards a restaurant that should be the finest in town that everyone would like. I mean, it also isn't the strongest in terms of passion that some characters really put into their own voice, and how I think Out There is a better song in that regard, but it still really is a spectacular one with the Art Deco style that went for most of it to paint the important picture of how visuals are equally as important as the sound to describe what that part of a hero actually wants. Like you're actually going into a picture or a drawing into this world made up of several drawings to really emphasize that point more, to connect with the character in the sense of wonder and what they feel within the specifics that the songs can have. And also appreciating the fact that Randy Newman came to work on such a project like this after Pixar for so long before Lasseter roped him over here. Which of course we should also appreciate him advocating for another 2D film in between the time before Winnie the Pooh killed it off. It's weird to think that there have been two characters in the past 30 years of Disney that have been locked up in higher towers such as Quasimodo and Rapunzel, where they both have such good I Want songs wanting to spend time out there in the public. Where this one asks the question, when will her life begin? A truly understandable one when most of your existence has been locked away to a small tower that doesn't really have much to do other than what she shows us visually to express her talent, really making the most out of it in order to live, but still knowing that her life has yet to begin. The film uses that space in such a unique way to really sell us what she is feeling and going through everything that would make her happy to chew up some time, but then repeating such lines again and again before showing her getting tired of it and pondering over what is actually out there. And the ending is truly great as it relates to her without actually knowing it when the lanterns release on her birthday tomorrow, meant to actually find her, signifying a very important plot point going forward that pertains to her, to the fact that her life is actually going to begin. It's just so good to be in the top 10, but also not good enough for something much more emotional, as you will see in my opinion. Waiting on a Miracle truly is special for something that relates to family as well. It's a very sad one initially with the visuals and lyrics pertaining to how everyone gets a gift or miracle except for Mirabelle, who's discarded from such a spotlight, where Encanto really gets it in terms of the songs pertaining to the story, diving into what each person can or can't do, as she says when she goes throughout the list of how her sisters and cousins can do this and why she can't at all, still waiting to take her own part in the family, which we already know she is a part of the family, but because of what Alma puts on them, it just feels like she isn't because she doesn't have those powers, making her reverse the chorus later in the second time from where she can't do it to the point that she would, where this is probably the best feature of this I Want song, knowing where the film is headed and the deeper metaphorical meanings of the chorus showing the family something new, healing what is broken as the story progresses. Of course, finally calling off to her own Abuelo Pedro, who technically gave them the miracle that he sacrificed himself for the family to where they are today. So in terms of wanting to belong, this really does stand out above the rest for an I Want song, but also not quite my favorites just yet. Now this is something that really connects with kids in terms of who is singing, because regarding most I Want songs, they usually are sung by teenagers or young adults, indicates to where they are in life that actually seems fit. But for this one, in that regard, it starts off much more younger with Simba learning as a cub, one that explores the naivety of his age wanting to be king just like his father promised him without any regard to what he said that must be done. Ideas that may be more similar to the incompetent rule of Scar if that's the case. It's very simple and relatable as a kid where you just can't wait for something, going to a place like Disneyland in my case, wanting and aiming to become famous on places like YouTube or anywhere else, or just whatever that excites you that leads you to endless possibilities. It's just the charm of Simba looking forward to something that makes us jam with it and its purpose in the song, even though we actually feel for Zazu's frustration and Mufasa's own teachings that showcases that there is more than just being the king for the sake of being king, where a good ruler must respect the circle of life if that is to be discussed. But young Simba at this point really doesn't care to know until that bites him later with the hyenas or his own father's eventual death. And it's why I'm not going to enter the top 5 for this or that reason, as there is much for him to actually learn as any kid would need. But for now, it's all about enjoying to live in the moment with the colorful visuals and all the animals coming to sing for King Simba's finest fling. Now this is the true start of every single song that every hero has sung with Snow White herself. Of course, it's also relatively short and simple, but that is a part of the charm of the character and the song itself for what the film represents, starting the age of animated films. And it's all done through the wonderful voice of Adriana Casalotti that solidified the mode of what a Disney princess sounds like and looks like and the desires that they usually want to sing. Word is the fact that it has been ranked as the 19th greatest film song of all time, which is truly high remarks regardless of where most of us actually think in terms of its quality in modern day songs. Like yes, when you think about it, or when I think about it, I still do think the other songs before on this list are better in terms of what they're describing what they want and the music involved in the background, but this one just remains special, serving as a symbol for all Disney music that spawned after it, all to represent the youthful innocence and romantical feelings of a character that can still go underappreciated by today's society. And here is another short reprise that addresses the main character's I want feelings with Belle, meaning again it is a song of two halves from our introduction where we don't necessarily need to dive in the other one for what Belle desires as the town already introduces us to such motivations. An interesting dynamic that really showcases how she wants something more than what this provincial town can provide, that tells her to do this rather than writing her own adventure like the book she reads. But again, I still qualify it falling short of an I want song that I particularly would like, but still enough to satisfy our own journey with Belle as a character that is literally the name of the song. Where I think the real gist of this song overall is just to establish the heart of the movie in what she brings against to what has happened to the beast, knowing someone who can learn to love and understand what beyond a provincial town could actually say. Wish I could say more about it again, but for something like this, I really can't, unfortunately. Now this is a song fit for a true hero, wanting to go the distance to belong somewhere. A sentiment where most people around him at the start feel like he's not wanted at all despite his physical ability, where it should be noted that this is his one and only song he ever sings, which makes it a great I want song based on that fact alone that makes you want to go along for his journey to belong with the gods once again and to be a real hero that he can discover to show that he could really go the distance, and how such a song can also really apply to anyone who wants to achieve a certain desire that others might not think to like or look upon at all. But you know deep down inside that you can, that every mile is worthwhile to discover no matter how hard or high that cost might be. And you can't deny the powerful French horn that really sets you on his journey that goes above and beyond what we should expect. One where he instead delights and stays with his adoptive human parents at the very end, reflecting where he truly belonged. It's all about staging the journey and going along with that journey that makes it stand out to where it should be as a song compared to how all the others have their own unique sound, all just enough to satisfy you what Hercules is aiming for without anything else added on before or after. Reflection is such an important song that can apply to anyone in multiple ways depending on who they are and how they feel, and it's why I think it should be regarded as one of the best I Want songs, one that reflects to how she can never be enough for this society in their tradition to be the perfect daughter or bride to by how she acts. Like Hercules, it's the only real song Mulan actually sings before she goes along her journey, unless you do count 2 lines in I'll Make a Man Out of You or Girl Worth Fighting For, where that is also perfect to do so to set up the journey that Mulan finds herself that will most likely result in her own death, knowing what the Chinese traditions in the film dictate and actually going off to literal war. And it's all done in a great way for a character compared to the many mainstream female heroes that most people rag on, having something that wants to show her true independent strengths to who she is but still being compassionate enough to what she loves in her own family, caring about that greatly but knowing the right way to truly express herself, which of course you have to give credit to Lea Salonga for providing the singing voice for 2 Disney princesses, where she has such a great voice for understanding the true emotions of the characters. So even though it's quite short, not as short as the reprises I just mentioned, it still carries massive weight for something where she is going to do a little bit later that sets off the events of the film for better or worse, while still remaining to be the same character from that very beginning. It's about the wanting to be yourself and not changing to a certain way, whether it be in the traditional roles we see throughout the film, but still doesn't compare to something that I would truly love myself quite yet. I think it can be said that Moana is an important piece to me, not only in terms of how I love it critically, but also to how I connect with it culturally and somewhat historically in terms of being Polynesian myself. And how far I'll go is a true progression of how far I Want songs have come to get to this point to set ourselves up on a journey of self-discovery between 2 worlds as most of our heroes go on. Where it is my most favorite song from Lin-Manuel Miranda, where he chose to dive into the more complexities of her own desire, the want that calls her to action while contending with the nature of what she already has. We saw this through the first song when her dad and mom sing saying to her, "Where you are, where most actually can be provided with the people who love her and work hard to make this the life they have," but also dives into the struggle with wanting to find out why the ocean calls her ever since she was a baby, similar to the reflection that Mulan had, where both characters truly struggle with such a conflict, where it is a reflection of her entire character throughout the entire film, with her own self-doubt if she could potentially make the journey, all done for the love of her people and not her own selfish desire, which can be seen on the surface. It's one that can also be seen when she expresses "what is wrong with me," knowing that she can be fine leading her own island with pride for prosperity, but also hearing a voice inside is who she truly is, to do something that would be destined for greatness. And it's all in her name herself, because it does again mean ocean as to why she was meant for that very call, having a distinct nature that can go for something despite her own second-guessing nature that she constantly moves throughout. And the ending of the song really emphasizes the good-hearted nature of her character, with the wind on her sails that stays behind her, a representation of where she was moving forward to an ever-changing and growing future, to what we know, which we also know could be her people, and putting that shell on the top of the rock at the very end, representing a legacy that will always carry forward. It's a mystery that you also want to explore for yourself as much as she does, whether it be in the movie or in life itself, maybe wanting to explore the ocean as much as she does, or how we navigate the world using the stars and the space above alongside the harmony of the sea to know the way. It's a song that really means well by how she speaks of everything she has and actually wants, not really bad-mouthing her life as much as the others would on this list to want more, but also finding what the voice calls her to do that, to add to what they have now, to have something more than this in such a way since everyone else seems fine with what they have. Where even in our lowest moments, we should always remember to persevere towards the next in order to answer the call to adventure, where one day we will just know how far we will go. Just like my last list, you probably did expect this to be the best as much as the worst on here, because I'd be a fool if I didn't rank the song that truly made I Want songs to what it is today with such a rich tune like Part of Your World, thanks to the efforts of Howard Ashman's own involvement with the film, where it is not only the best I Want song, it's also just one of the best Disney songs ever made in my opinion. It truly establishes everything you need to know about Ariel in her life, with the curiosity she displays for such a world she is never able to see within her own collection, a longing reflected in the tune of the sea for something more. It's very specific in what she wants, particularly questioning the possibility of what humans can bring that is enamoring and the problem she faces with her own role in the kingdom, where again, it's not the fact that she despises everything in her life, she loves her family and her father, but just feels like there's something more for her than this restrictive attitude that is down here put in place by Triton. It's a song where you can really feel and understand what the character is going through to a personal level, which is what Howard tried to convey, becoming essential to the film's own narrative even when Katzenberg initially wanted to be removed due to a concern that it would bore children, which evidently was so stupid to no surprise to someone as dumb as him when kids do constantly sing such a classic nowadays, where you also do have to credit some of the director's decisions to change the lyrics to thingamabobs to things she doesn't know about, and her own determination in the reprise to get to that point. But overall, it still is because of that effort of Howard himself that really made this song to what it is, especially with the direction he took with Jodie Benson herself to emphasize the meaning of the song and the character within the broader context of the film, where you really get what he means when you look at those specific scenes in the song, adding realism and intensity to Ariel rather than what she would have wanted just in singing, making it really his own song by how Jodie says you can hear some of Howard's breath in the final track. It is that longing she does in several moments of that scene to pause for a breath or actually just speaking the lyrics that gives it such great meaning compared to if it was just otherwise sung just because, like the 2023 version with Halle. I mean, she is a great singer, but it still misunderstands the purpose of why it worked to begin with in terms of how it's conveyed. You can't just sing a song just because you like it, where you have to add some realism to convey the emotion that makes their journey complete, that makes you understand why they want to do this and why they are going through, because of course, you can't just sing just because, that just doesn't make any sense. Where in the behind the scenes, Menken and Ashman selected several bits that Jodie sung that weren't quite perfect in the final cut and included those spoken words that she sings in order to sell you on that realism, especially in something as unreal as animation could be, which elevates that to an extreme and why we love it that way. And that's why we respect it as such, for that understanding alone in an effort that goes underappreciated in the modern age, including that terrible remake, where ironically, it just forgoes all the realism in that sense for something that tries to be realistic. It is this own understanding that makes Part of Your World the success it was to give way for most of these heroes even before and after she came out to sing songs that they so desire that many find connectable in this day and age. And without that effort, We would never have such impactful moments that we hold dear to our hearts to this very day, and one I am grateful for. The ones that actually make us love a film for what it is. And all of these songs are again good on their own. They are all meant to be enjoyed in their own unique way to why we love Disney so much, for an effort it takes a group to perform rather than just one individual, even if the songs pertain to such. And this is all done for the hope that more of these songs can come from the studio, or studios if they choose to make it so, that binds and connects every individual together within the circle of life, where I truly would want more of them in the future. And I'm all done, so goodbye.